A few years back, I spent 14 solid years working for a mid-sized corporate company. For most of that time, about 12 years to be exact, things were actually pretty good. The workload was manageable, the team got along well, and while it wasn't my dream job, it was stable, comfortable even. I knew what I was doing, people respected my work, and I had built a routine I could rely on. Then, everything changed. Our department got a new supervisor. The frustrating part, he wasn't new to the company. He had been one of us, a colleague, someone we worked alongside every day. But the moment he got promoted, it was like a switch flipped. The guy we used to joke with turned into someone none of us could recognize. Power went straight to his head. Suddenly, everything became a control game. Every interaction felt like a test, every task like a setup. He had this constant need to prove he was in charge, even when it wasn't necessary. Simple things turned into complicated processes just so he could insert himself and remind everyone who the boss was. At first, I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. Promotions can be overwhelming, and not everyone adjusts smoothly. I figured maybe he just needed time to settle into the role. But time didn't fix anything. If anything, it made things worse. He developed this habit of delegating almost everything, his actual responsibilities, to the rest of us. Not in a normal, team-based way, but in a way where he would dump entire chunks of his work onto others, then step back and act like he had done it himself. And the credit? That always went straight to him. But the mistakes? Those somehow always belonged to someone else. It didn't matter if you had proof, emails, or documented instructions. If something went wrong, he would find a way to spin it so it landed on someone under him. Watching it happen once was frustrating. Watching it happen over and over again was exhausting. Then came the personal assistant situation. Out of nowhere, he decided he needed a PA. Now, this was unusual because no one else in his position had ever needed one before. It wasn't that kind of role, but he pushed for it, insisted he was overwhelmed, and somehow convinced upper management to approve it. That's when Sarah came in. She was hired as his personal assistant, but very quickly it became obvious that her role wasn't what it was supposed to be. Instead of supporting him, she was basically doing his entire job. Scheduling, reports, emails, project coordination, you name it, she handled it. And just like the rest of us, she quickly realized what kind of person he really was. At first, she tried to stay positive. She was new, after all, and probably hoping things would improve once she got settled. But it didn't take long before the frustration started to show. He micromanaged the smallest details while completely ignoring the big picture. He would criticize her over minor formatting issues in an email, but take full credit for entire projects she had put together from scratch. And the way he spoke to her? Sharp, dismissive, sometimes downright rude. You could see it wearing her down. The thing was, Sarah wasn't in a position to just walk away. She had personal responsibilities, family, bills, things that made quitting without another job lined up impossible. So she stayed, even though it was clear she couldn't stand him. I felt bad for her. Honestly, I felt bad for all of us. For about 18 months, I tried to make it work. I kept my head down, did my job, avoided unnecessary interactions with him, and told myself it was just a phase. But it wasn't. Every day felt heavier than the last. The stress started creeping into my life outside of work. I found myself dreading Mondays in a way I never had before. That's when I realized something had to change. So I made a decision. I was done. I handed in my resignation without another job lined up, which was something I had never done before. It was a risk, but staying felt worse than the uncertainty of leaving. And while I didn't think of it as revenge at the time, what happened next definitely felt like it. Walking out of that office for the last time felt like taking a deep breath after being underwater for too long. There was no dramatic goodbye, no big speech, just a few quiet handshakes, some keep in touch comments, and a couple of knowing looks from coworkers who completely understood why I was leaving. And honestly, most of them weren't surprised, because by that point, everyone had felt it. The tension, the frustration, the constant pressure of working under someone who made even the simplest tasks feel exhausting. But before I fully closed that chapter, I did one thing. Something small, but meaningful. I helped Sarah get out too. Over the months, we had talked a lot. Not in a gossip way, just real conversations about work, stress, and how draining things had become. I knew she was stuck, not because she wanted to stay, but because she didn't feel like she had a choice. So I reached out to a contact I trusted, someone at another company I had worked with before. They were looking for someone organized, reliable, and capable of handling multiple responsibilities. Basically, someone exactly like Sarah. I put in a good word for her. Strong recommendation, no hesitation. She interviewed, and it didn't take long. They offered her the job. Better pay, shorter commute, a healthier environment, the kind of position where she'd actually be valued instead of used. When she told me she got it, the relief on her face said everything. "I can't believe this," she said, almost like she was afraid it would disappear if she spoke too loudly. "You earned it," I told her. "Don't forget that." A couple of weeks later, she put in her notice, and just like that, our supervisor lost the one person who had been quietly carrying most of his workload. At the time, I didn't think of it as revenge. I just wanted to help someone who deserved better. But looking back, it definitely had an effect. Because without Sarah there, things started to fall apart. Fast. He actually had to start doing his own work again, and it showed immediately that he wasn't nearly as capable as he pretended to be. Deadlines started slipping, emails went unanswered, tasks that used to get handled smoothly suddenly turned into problems. And the rest of the team? They noticed. But here's where things really started to shift. My resignation, and then Sarah's, seemed to trigger something. It was like we had unknowingly broken some invisible barrier. One by one, other people started leaving too. At first, it was just one colleague putting in their notice, then another, then two more within the same week. Within a short period of time, 6 people from the department had left. 6! For a team that size, it wasn't just a setback, it was a full-on crisis. And the reason behind it wasn't exactly a secret. People talk. Word spreads, and when multiple employees leave at the same time, management starts asking questions. From what I heard later, upper management quickly connected the dots. Exit interviews told a very similar story across the board. Same complaints, same frustrations, same name coming up over and over again. Him, the supervisor, the one who had turned a stable, functional department into something people couldn't wait to escape. Suddenly, the pressure that he had been putting on everyone else started coming back in his direction. And this is where things took an unexpected turn. Part of his role, one of the responsibilities he had conveniently been avoiding, was preparing and submitting tenders for government contracts. These were important, high-stakes projects that required careful planning, detailed documentation, and strict deadlines. Guess who had been handling most of that work before? Sarah. With her gone and most of the team depleted, that responsibility landed right back where it should have been all along, on him. And unfortunately for him, the timing couldn't have been worse, because he had already made plans, big plans. He had booked a family trip to the United States for Christmas, a full vacation, including a visit to Disneyland, flights, hotels, everything arranged. For most people, that would be something to look forward to all year. But there was one problem. The tender deadline was set for the end of December, and the work wasn't done. Not even close. Without a team to rely on, without a personal assistant to quietly handle everything behind the scenes, he was suddenly facing the reality of his own responsibilities. And from what I heard, he wasn't handling it very well. By the time December rolled around, the situation had caught up with him completely. With most of the team gone and no one left to quietly pick up the slack, upper management finally stepped in. They had no choice. The department wasn't just struggling, it was barely functioning. And right at the center of it all was him. The supervisor, who had spent so much time pushing work onto others, now had everything landing right back on his own desk, including the tender. Now, this wasn't some small assignment he could rush through in a day or two. Government contracts required detailed proposals, accurate numbers, proper documentation, and strict deadlines. It was the kind of work that needed focus, experience, and, most importantly, time. Things he suddenly didn't have. Because while all of this was happening, his holiday plans were coming up fast. He had everything booked, a big family trip to the United States with Disneyland as the highlight, flights arranged, hotel reservations confirmed, probably an entire itinerary planned out. But the work? Still unfinished. And management knew it. At some point, a decision was made. His leave was canceled, just like that. From what I heard later, they called him into a meeting and laid it out clearly. The department was short-staffed, the tender deadline couldn't be moved, and there was no one else left who could handle it. They also made it clear that the staffing problem wasn't random, it was because of him. That part, I imagine, hit the hardest, because it's one thing to struggle quietly behind the scenes, but it's another to have it officially recognized, especially by the people above you. So while his family packed their bags and got ready for their holiday, he stayed behind, working, trying to piece together a tender that should have been done weeks earlier. I heard that his family still went ahead with the trip without him, which, if you think about it, says a lot. And honestly, knowing the way he used to talk to his wife on the phone, sharp, impatient, sometimes even dismissive, I wouldn't be surprised if she didn't mind having that trip without him. Maybe, for once, she got a break too. As for the tender itself, I never found out all the details. Whether he managed to pull it together at the last minute or not didn't really matter to me, because by that point, I was already gone, and more importantly, I was in a much better place. Looking back, none of it feels like some grand revenge story. I didn't set out to ruin his situation. I didn't plan for half the team to leave. I didn't expect his holiday to get canceled. All I did was make a decision for myself, to walk away from something that wasn't healthy anymore. And in doing that, I helped someone else do the same. Everything else? That was just the natural result of his own actions catching up with him. If there's one thing I took away from the whole experience, it's this. You can only push people so far before they stop putting up with it. You can only take credit, shift blame, and avoid responsibility for so long before it comes around. And when it does, there's no one left to hide behind. In the end, he didn't lose Disneyland because of me. He lost it because when it really mattered, there was no one left willing to do his work for him. And that's a consequence you can't blame on anyone else.